News now from Davos. With the issue of black money hanging over the Indian government's head, the only way ahead for India to penetrate into tax havens is through bilateral treaties, something that the Swiss State Secretary of Finance has confirmed to NDTV that Switzerland is ready to go ahead with. But speaking to NDTV, he also pointed out that India had to take the initiative.
A lot of Indians are very, very exercised about this issue because the way they perceive it, Michael, is that money that Indians do not want to pay tax on is essentially being stashed away in banks here so that they can avoid paying income tax. In other words, your country is being seen by many Indians as a tax haven for defaulters and fraudsters. How do you counter this perception?
This perception is wrong. Switzerland is not a tax haven. And Switzerland does not give refuge to people who want to hide their money.
But as we understand the law here, tax evasion is not a crime in Switzerland, but money that is obtained by illegal means is. But in India, tax evasion is a crime too. So how do you distinguish between those two?
We have recently signed an agreement between India and Switzerland, which is now in Parliament in order to get ratified. And there we will concretely take steps against tax evasion. And as soon as this agreement is in force, both sides can grant administrative assistance also for tax evasion.
So are you saying that if this treaty were to be ratified by both sides, by both countries, Switzerland and your authorities could share the names of the Indians who have money here in the banks?
If the Indian authorities can show that there is evidence that people have evaded their money, then the answer is yes.
You would be aware that with Liechtenstein, there is a current ongoing similar debate where the names were shared. You're saying this treaty would facilitate the Swiss authorities to be able to do the same if the Indians were able to prove that tax had been evaded?
If the Indian authorities can give evidence that for the person X or Y, there is evidence that they have evaded their taxes in Switzerland, Switzerland will grant administrative assistance.
There is a whole issue of the confidentiality of banking on the one hand and the issue of the law on the other. But you must know that this is a huge debate in India and of concern to many citizens. What would you say to the Indians who see Switzerland as some sort of escape route for those who want to break the law in India?
We want to have confidentiality for the bank client, but we don't want to protect him from paying taxes. There is no such thing that in Switzerland you can avoid the taxpayers.
That's the perception, that you can evade tax here. That's not true?
No, that is not true, and it is especially not true as soon as we have ratified the new double taxation agreement, which has been signed last year by your government, by our government, and as soon as it is in force, and I hope this will happen this year, then you can definitively no more have this perception.
Let's imagine that this treaty were in place. What would be different today if I were the Indian government and I were to say to you, person X, we believe has evaded tax, and there are examples in India of people whom the Indian authorities believe have evaded up to 50,000 crore rupees. If this treaty were in place and the Indian authorities were to come with you with these names, would you disclose the information that was available to you?
As I said before, as soon as the government, the authority in India, can prove that there is evidence for tax evasion, then we can grant this administrative assistance.
Do you believe that this treaty will be ratified soon, or we can't predict that yet?
I can predict that in Switzerland there is a great likelihood, a big likelihood that it will be ratified. I can't talk for India. For obvious reasons.
Well, we should actually be ratifying it even before you, given the amount of attention it's occupying in our country. One last question. There is the famous example of the UBS Bank and the Americans that is quoted all the time when we talk about black money. Do you think that applies to the India-Switzerland case?
This is a different case. This was a different case. This was a case of UBS specifically, and this has nothing to do with India.
So everything could change with the ratification of this treaty?
It will not change everything. We have already a good legal basis to grant judicial and administrative assistance, But as soon as this convention is in force, then it will become even better.